It's an earthquake under the ocean.
We've been getting hints about Atlantis in the MCU for years now, so why haven't we seen it yet? I know it's a secret underwater city and all that, but it was on the S.H.I.E.L.D. map at the end of Iron Man 2. Heck, Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. even name-dropped Atlantis in Season 2, so what gives?
Truthfully?
Well, it all has to do with Namor's rights. Namor is the ruler of Atlantis, and one of the many characters Marvel sold the rights to other studios back in the day. But now his rights are back with Marvel, and he could be the catalyst of the MCU's Civil War II. Namor is a character that we've talked about ad nauseum here at CBR, and for good reason. He's more than just Marvel's version of Aquaman.
My point exactly.
Namor is actually a super interesting anti-hero with a constantly changing agenda. You never really know what he's up to, and that's why I think he'd be an awesome character in the MCU. You can never have too many agents of chaos. Marvel, seriously, just sort out the rights so we can see this badass sea dweller sooner rather than later. As is usually the case with anti-heroes, trouble seems to always find a way to Namor. In the comics, he's constantly butting heads with the Black Panther, but despite their up and down relationship, they're usually allies more often than not. Sounds a lot like Steve Rogers and Tony Stark now, doesn't it? For this reason, it seems like Black Panther 2 could be the movie that sets the stage for Namor in the MCU. Right now, Wakanda is seen as a friendly place in the world. They opened their borders and they're now sharing their incredible tech with the rest of the world, all because of King T'Challa. Thanks, bud!
Wakanda forever!
While Wakanda has a good relationship with the rest of the world right now, Wakanda and Namor's home of Atlantis aren't always known to be on the best of terms in the comics. They're constantly at odds and hold this deep disdain for one another. You see, the Atlanteans just don't like the land dwellers, and Wakandans don't like people who don't like them. The Atlanteans are a very militaristic race and do not take kindly to strangers. If Namor deems you to be a threat, the Atlantean army will attack and show no mercy. It's pretty much whatever he say goes. You remember back in Avengers Endgame, we heard Okoye mention to Black Widow that an underwater earthquake took place just off the coast of Africa. When Black Widow asked if she was gonna do anything about it, Okoye said Wakanda isn't planning any further action. A lot of hardcore fans, including myself, believe this was a reference to Namor, because if you didn't know, underwater earthquakes usually lead to tsunamis. So it's possible that Atlantis is responsible for this. They might launch an attack on Wakanda, which will pin Namor as the main villain of Black Panther 2. This quarrel could eventually lead to an end-of-movie fight between Black Panther and Namor, which I believe will definitely happen at some point. But just like in the comics, it won't be the last of the Black Panther and Namor. Like I said earlier, the two are often allies, so I believe the movie will end with them making up and coming up with a truce of some sort. A truce that will certainly come in handy once Civil War II rolls around. Let's face it, another Civil War is inevitable and will happen at some point. Most likely in Phase 5, as Phase 4 plans are probably all set at this point. Captain America Civil War was pretty faithful to its source material, but it's unlikely the MCU's second Civil War will be as well. In the comics, the Civil War II arc focused on Iron Man and Captain America once again, but the main concern was whether or not a precognitive mutant should be used to prevent crimes before they happen. While I do expect mutants to be introduced in Phase 4, I don't think they'll be the reason for another Civil War. Instead, it all might stem from Atlantis. If there's something about us humans that's both a pro and a con, it's our curiosity. We naturally want to know things, which allows us to make some amazing advancements in fields like technology and science. But it also causes us to sometimes stick our nose where it doesn't belong and get ourselves in danger. The humans of the MCU are no different and will, without a doubt, find a way to get themselves involved with Atlantis. I feel this could happen one of two ways. It's possible that the tsunamis and storms Atlantis unleashed on Wakanda will become an event known around the world. Some sort of weird anomaly that no one could explain. The humans of Earth can't deal with something being unexplained, so they'll scout out the area to see what's up.
Even I don't know what it does.
S.H.I.E.L.D. might stumble upon Atlantis and get attacked instantly by Namor and the Atlantean army, something S.H.I.E.L.D. would report to the United Nations as an act of war. Another possibility is that Atlantis itself becomes the known city at the end of Black Panther 2, so the UN will send a diplomatic envoy to Atlantis, hopefully to get some Atlantean resources, but it'll be destroyed by Namor and turn into a huge debacle. Whatever the case may be, humans are going to get too curious and will not be happy when Atlantis fights back, which will start the second MCU Civil War. A big question you may be asking is, if S.H.I.E.L.D. knew about Atlantis since Iron Man 2, why didn't they check it out earlier? Well, that's a pretty darn good question if you ask me, but the answer is actually quite simple. S.H.I.E.L.D. knew that Atlantis was not to be messed with, so they didn't want to get involved. Like I said, the Atlantean army is incredibly powerful, and they will attack anyone Namor tells them to. S.H.I.E.L.D. didn't want to start a war over nothing, so they let Atlantis be until they felt like they had to do something. Only once S.H.I.E.L.D. gets attacked by Atlantis will they get involved. If Earth and Atlantis are going to war against each other, then they're each going to need a team, similar to Captain America Civil War, where you had Team Captain America going up against Team Iron Man. Ah, better days, huh?
We fight.
Atlantis will have its fair share of allies after Black Panther 2. Of course, Namor and the Atlantean army will be at the forefront of the team. It may sound crazy considering I expect Namor and the Black Panther to butt heads in the films, but I think Wakanda would side with Atlantis after their truce because they know a thing or two about being kept a secret. This means characters like the Black Panther, Shuri, and Okoye would also side with Atlantis. Wakanda would be a hugely important ally, as their wealth of technological assets could really give them an advantage. Another member who would join Team Atlantis is Scarlet Witch. It sounds super random, but Wanda Maximoff has been oppressed most of her life and would know exactly what Atlantis is going through. She would absolutely side with Namor and take the fight to Earth. Even Shang-Chi could join the team, as his morality leans more towards siding with Atlantis than Earth. He likes to stay in the shadows, and a lot of his comics are espionage-based, so I could see him joining Team Atlantis. As for Team Earth, they're going to be much less interesting. The team would most likely be composed of those who have signed the Sokovia Accords, since they will have no choice but to attack Atlantis. I could definitely see War Machine, Spider-Man, and US Patriot as part of the team, and if there's anyone else who would sign the accords between Endgame and Civil War II, it would probably be the Fantastic Four. In the comics, Namor clashed a few times with the Fantastic Four, so I wouldn't be surprised if they were a part of Team Earth. There would also likely be a group of heroes trying to play peacekeeper, not picking a side and doing their best to keep either side from taking things too far. This group would have to include Captain Marvel, because she's too overpowered to actually take a side, since that side would instantly win. Other members could be Ant-Man, Falcon, and Bucky Barnes. Ant-Man playing peacekeeper could make for plenty of hilarious moments.
I'm shaking your hand too long.
It would also be really interesting if we got to see Spider-Man put on his big boy pants and really show what he's about in Civil War II. Out of all the heroes on Team Earth, I have Spider-Man pegged as the quiet leader, who will surprise everyone with his leadership skills. He'll essentially take a page out of Iron Man and finally become the next great hero Earth has been waiting for. It would be amazing to see him involved in an epic final fight scene against Namor. As for Team Atlantis, I'd really like to see an interesting and growing relationship with Namor and the Black Panther, whether it's T'Challa or Shuri as the king or queen of Wakanda. Like I already said, they have such an interesting relationship in the comics, and I'd love to see it on the big screen. All I know is that a civil war between Earth and Atlantis with these two teams would be a must-see on day one movie for me. But how will it end? Just like in Captain America Civil War, I don't think it will. Wakanda and Atlantis will have a pretty uneasy relationship with the rest of the world until they'll have no choice but to get along. See, come on, everybody just hug it out. We can be friends, right?
Yes.
After Captain America Civil War, Steve Rogers and Tony Stark weren't on speaking terms. It took the intergalactic threat of Thanos for them to start talking to each other again because, they had to save the world and stuff. Typical superhero things. I expect more of the same after Civil War II. Wakanda and Atlantis will be forced to get along with the rest of the world for the greater good. The next big bad of the MCU will make their presence known, and I believe it'll be Galactus, the Devourer of Worlds. He's arguably the most powerful being in the comics, and I think he'll be the biggest threat the Avengers have faced to date in the MCU. He doesn't need to rely on Infinity Stones or anything like that, because his power cosmic grants him incredible powers as long as he satisfies his appetites for planets. Yep, as long as he eats a planet every now and then, he's fine. What's interesting about Galactus is that he usually has a herald, someone with a fraction of his power who scouts the universe in search of the next planet for him to devour. The most famous herald of Galactus would be the Silver Surfer, and I believe he will fulfill that role in the MCU. Maybe he'll be the main villain of the Fantastic Four movie, or, at the very least, appear in a post-credits scene as a cryptic way of letting us know he found the next planet on Galactus' plate. We know that a fifth Avengers movie is coming eventually, and it seems like Phase 4 and 5 are setting up the groundwork for it to take place. With the Fantastic Four and Namor in the fold, Avengers 5 is shaping up to be a blockbuster for the ages, and it could all be thanks to Civil War II. Let's just all cross our fingers and hope for more of those awesome running group shots, huh? Look at how majestic they are. As for which side I would take in Civil War II, well, it's really an easy decision. I can't swim at all, so I'd definitely be Team Earth all the way. No chance I'm gonna be hanging out with those sea dwellers, but Namor is the coolest. Maybe it is a harder choice than I thought. Cannonball!